Sometimes you just gotta hit record, man. Um, just wanted to jump on here for a minute, man. I ain't been on video in a while, it feels like, and no specific reason, man, other than life. There's ups, there's downs, but that's life. And one of the things that I'm learning more and more is to focus on what really matters to you, man. I mean, because there's gonna be a lot of people, a lot of situations that don't understand you, right? And that's why a personal relationship with the Lord is so important. Um, because a lot of good, meaningful people will give you advice because of their experiences, because of their perspectives and stuff like that, and that's good. We should seek that type of counsel. 100%, I'm all for that. But you got to make decisions based upon your own personal convictions and your own relationship with the Lord. And hopefully all of those decisions line up with His Word. Though there may be situations where we can't find something specifically in the Word, it should definitely line up. So I just wanted to jump on here and just talk, man, because I haven't talked on camera in a minute, and feels pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Life is definitely transitioning. Definitely heading into a new season of life, and it's good. There's definitely unknownness about it, because I'm switching a lot of things up. For the better, though. But I just wanted to, like, my specific reason for jumping on this video was like just this thought that I was having. And there's a lot of people that I pour into, and one of the things that I see is people who are fighting, say for example, like depression, or this can even tie into like abusing different substances like drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. That's not necessarily where I was going with this, but ultimately we find ourselves depressed, anxiety stricken, running to cope with different things a lot of the time because we're not doing what the Lord has created us to do. And that can be broad in a sense of like the will of God for each person's life, but what I've come to find is in my own life and in the lives of people that I'm able to pour into, is when you find yourself in one of these places, right? Ask yourself this question, and I think it's very important. But what contribution am I giving to the world? Who am I serving? Like, what am I doing to give back? How am I making the lives of others better? Initially, relationships, what I'm saying? Am I building upon those blocks in friendships or whatever it may be? Because a lot of the times when I've talked to people, and I'm going to be real, I'm kind of speaking on my own situation a little bit, just in the past couple of years, something that I've noticed with myself is, because obviously we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We got an enemy. There's all kind of different things that stop us from, walking in our purpose, right? You got people that try to step up and do dumb stuff. You got people and there's so many reasons. We're not going to go into the reasons, right? But ultimately, there's a lot of different hindrances for you walking in purpose. And a lot of times it's flesh. A lot of times, we gravitate towards what the world says about us. And then instead of, taking those things captive and bringing them up under truth, we sit there and struggle with what people think of us and stuff like that. And it discourages us from, doing anything, So a lot of times you find yourself just kind of stuck in a rut, just not really moving and shaking like you probably have before. And you wonder why you're depressed. You wonder why, you're fighting these different thoughts and trying to cope with the wrong things. And a lot of the times it's really because you're neglecting these three things. So I spoke on contribution, and I think that is very important because, a lot of the times I've seen people who are like depressed. I ask them, like, when's the last time you helped somebody else? Because a lot of times depression is just an inward focus of self. What you're going through, what hurts you, what's you. It's a lot of you thoughts that cause you to, think about the negative things about yourself, how you look, how you feel, what happened to you, what might happen to you, stuff like that. You just get lost in that, right? But when you're serving others, your focus is not on you, it's on people, right? So, a lot of times I see that parallel. People who are in these low states are really just kind of inwardly focused, and they're not serving. They're not getting out here and just adding value to people's lives. But number two, and we're gonna go backwards. That was the third one. But number two is fulfillment, right? So it's like a lot of people don't have this fulfillment because they're not making any type of progress in life. A lot of times, you have dreams and ambitions and visions, and you feel the call on your life and all these different things. And when you're not pursuing those things, when you're not actively doing something about it, because that's a big thing. A lot of times we just gain so much information, whether it's books or sermons or just all type of educational content, and we neglect a lot of times the basics, but just doing the thing, right? I've learned, the more you work on something, it's never really in vain, because either it's going to be accomplished or it's going to accomplish something in you that's going to make you a better person. So that's a little nugget for all those out there, and that applies across the board, whether it's relationships, business, whatever. But yeah, so fulfillment in the feelings of fulfillment, and the reality of fulfillment in making progression. And that's in whatever it may be to you. It could be a hobby, a sport, a relationship, whatever. It's just you want to have something or multiple things that you're making some kind of progress in, some type of steps forward in, because, it brings about a level of accomplishment, and God created us in his image as creators, right? So it's like when we're not creating, when we're not adding value, when we're not serving, right? See, these are all things that, ties back to our identity. And when we're not walking in them, it can really cause us to, feel some kind of way. So yeah, contribution, making progress. But the number one thing, and you guys should know what this is, and that's growing in your relationship with the Lord. Hands down, number one, always. Never neglecting intimacy, devotion, getting in your word, fellowship with other believers. And that does not mean church, though it can for some, you know what I'm saying? It's really just having some type of assembly, some type of community of, people with the mind of Christ to be able to sharpen with, to meet up with, to hang out with. A lot of the times we get so focused on like church being the only thing that we neglect real good Christian relationships outside of the church. And that's a sad thing. I'm not going to go into that, that ties to like a lack of discipleship, all that, but that's not where I'm going. But ultimately, number one is growing in your relationship with God. So, just to kind of tack on top of that is growing in relationships, right? So whether it's with friends, family, spouses, whatever that is for you, God created us as relational beings, right? So we were created for relationship, right? And if we're not growing in relationship, that's another thing that just kind of pulls us down. So, you have 1, 2, and 3 growing in your relationships. Number one with God, and then, everything that falls up under that. Number 2, progress. You got to be moving forward in something in life, man. And number 3, giving back, contribution, helping other people. To me, I found if I can make an attempt to, and like I said, everything ain't perfect. I really wish it was, and it will be one day in Jesus' name. But, on this side of eternity, maybe we won't do those every day. But if we can make it a goal, make it a point to where every day we're trying to pursue those things, like I said, whether that's in your private time, your quiet time with the Lord or whatever, if you can just do those 3 things every day in some shape or form, like you will live a more fulfilled life. Like you will. And it'll keep your mind focused on those things which matter the most to you. And hopefully those are, kingdom things, kingdom principles. So, like Paul said in, I think it was Philippians, where it's like, to think on certain things, when I'm pursuing God and relationship with him, his people, my people, growing and progressing and advancing the kingdom, helping others and serving and all of those different things, like, life is amazing. You know what I'm saying? But when I step outside of that, that's where it gets a little shaky, and a lot of the times that's where you find yourself depressed. And I don't even look at it like as a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like God set it up in us for like this little alarm go off called depression, when you're outside of that box. You see what I'm saying? So, and that does not neglect, the real mental health side of depression and anxiety, all that stuff. I do believe that there's real chemical imbalances and stuff, but for, the average person, a lot of the time, it's simply you not walking out those things in your life that God has called you to, and it sucks. So it's like the red flag is the fact that you don't feel good. You feel depressed, you get anxiety, you start being all over the place. Why? Because you're simply straying away from the very reason you were created. So if you feel like that, think about those three things, man. Are you consciously, you know, uh, doing something in those three areas? Um, yeah,